When a liberal journalist tries to demean Barron Trump's godfather, the iconic Clint Eastwood, during a heated interview, Barron delivers an extraordinary and unanticipated rebuttal. Witness this intense confrontation as it leaves everyone astonished. The atmosphere in the room buzzed with tension, the bright studio lights glaring down on the gleaming oak table. Clint Eastwood, a cinematic legend whose presence had defined Hollywood for decades, sat with calm resolve, his weathered expression revealing nothing. Opposite him was Claire Daniels, a sharp-eyed young journalist known for exposing secrets and fueling controversies. She wasn't there for a casual exchange. She was hunting for a headline. Behind Clint stood Barron Trump. At 19, his towering stature and piercing blue eyes exuded maturity well beyond his years. As the youngest son of the 47th President of the United States, he carried a unique burden. Entrusted to Clint Eastwood's mentorship, a role kept from public knowledge, Barron had become someone far more profound than just the president's child. The interview commenced with cutting remarks. Claire leaned forward, her tone sharp and confrontational. "Mr. Eastwood, many describe you as outdated, irrelevant. Why cling to a spotlight that no longer shines for you?" Clint's eyes narrowed, but before he could reply, Barron's calm voice cut through the tension. "Sometimes the brightest lights are the ones people fail to see. You just need to know where to look." Caught off guard, Claire hesitated, her pen halting mid-sentence. "I didn't realize you were part of this conversation, Barron," she said, attempting to regain control. "I'm not," Barron replied smoothly, "but when someone disrespects a man who stood the test of time, it's hard to remain silent." Clint rested a reassuring hand on Barron's shoulder, signaling him to stand down. "The kid's got a point," Clint said in his signature gravelly tone. "Let's focus on the real story here, not the drama you're fishing for." Unfazed, Claire shifted her attack. "You talk about respect, Barron, yet your father's presidency has been divisive. What makes you think you have the authority to speak on legacy and integrity?" Barron's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. "I speak because I've lived it," he said firmly, "and because I've learned from people like Clint, who've built their legacies not by tearing others down, but by standing tall in their truth." Intrigued but relentless, Claire pressed on. "Mr. Eastwood, there are allegations you've used your influence to shield the Trump family. Care to comment?" Clint's expression darkened, his voice steady but firm. "Rumors are like shadows, empty until someone gives them weight. I don't waste time on gossip." Claire turned back to Barron. "And what about you? Living in your father's shadow must be suffocating. How do you cope with being seen as just Donald Trump's son?" For the first time, a flicker of vulnerability crossed Barron's face. Yet his voice was steady, layered with emotion. "I'm more than my last name," he said. "Clint has shown me that legacies aren't handed down. They're earned. If you're looking for a headline, write this: Respect isn't inherited. It's proven." The weight of his words hung in the air, silencing even Claire momentarily. But she wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her voice icy. "Mr. Eastwood, there's talk of an incident from your past, a decision that may have endangered lives. Would you care to explain?" The room grew still as Clint's jaw tightened. Before he could respond, Barron interjected, his tone low but commanding. "That's enough," he said. Claire smirked. "What's the matter, Barron? Afraid the truth might tarnish your perfect image of him?" Barron stood, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the table. "The truth doesn't scare me," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "What's troubling is your obsession with tearing people down instead of seeking the bigger picture. If you want a story, here's one. Clint Eastwood saved my life. Twice." Claire froze, her confidence momentarily shaken. "He saved your life?" she asked, her skepticism evident. "Yes," Barron replied, his voice cracking with emotion. "But you don't care about that, do you? You'd rather dig up old wounds than honor the man who's been my anchor in a world that's anything but steady." Clint smiled, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You're stronger than you think, Barron, and no matter where life takes you, that strength will guide you. Just remember, it's not about proving anything to the world, it's about being true to yourself." Barron nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You've always said that, and I finally understand what it means." The night air was cool as they stepped outside the gala. The Washington skyline glimmered in the distance, a symbol of power and resilience. As they stood together, a small group of veterans approached, their faces lined with years of service and sacrifice. "Mr. Eastwood, Mr. Trump," one of them said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you for everything, not just for tonight, but for reminding us what loyalty and integrity look like." Clint shook the man's hand firmly. "The real heroes are people like you. We just tell the stories." Barron chimed in, his tone genuine. "And we make sure those stories are never forgotten." As the night wound down, Clint and Barron returned to the White House, their bond stronger than ever. The events of the past week had tested them, but it had also reaffirmed the values they both held dear. In the days that followed, the media frenzy began to die down. The viral video, the heartfelt interview, and the stories of Clint's bravery had painted a picture that even the harshest critics couldn't ignore. Clint Eastwood wasn't just a Hollywood legend or a presidential confidant. He was a mentor, a protector, and a man whose actions spoke louder than any headline. For Barron, the experience was transformative. He no longer felt overshadowed by his father's legacy. He had found his own voice, and he owed much of that to Clint. Late one evening, Barron sat at his desk, penning a letter. It wasn't meant for publication or the cameras. It was a deeply personal thank you to Clint. He wrote about the lessons he'd learned, the strength he'd gained, and the gratitude he felt for having someone like Clint in his corner. When Clint received the letter a few days later, he read it in silence. A rare tear slipped down his cheek, but he quickly brushed it away. He folded the letter carefully and placed it alongside the one Barron had written years ago. As he looked out at the horizon, Clint couldn't help but smile. The world could be chaotic, unforgiving, and harsh, but moments like these, bonds forged in trust, loyalty, and love, were what made it all worthwhile. And for Barron, Clint's mentorship would remain a guiding force, a reminder that no matter the challenges ahead, he had the tools to face them with courage and integrity. A few weeks later, Barron stood on the balcony of the White House, watching the sun set over Washington, D.C. The vibrant hues of the horizon seemed to mirror the new sense of clarity he felt within himself. Clint joined him, his steps slow but purposeful. The silence between them was comforting, filled with unspoken understanding. "You've got a good view from up here," Clint remarked, leaning on the railing. Barron chuckled softly. "It's a reminder of how far we've come and how much there's still to do." Clint nodded, his gaze fixed on the fading light. "The work's never done, kid, but you've got the heart for it. Just keep walking your path." Barron turned to him, his voice steady and resolute. "I will, and I'll always carry your lessons with me." Clint gave a small, proud smile. "That's all I could ever ask for." As night fell, the city's lights flickered to life, illuminating the streets below. For the first time in a long while, Barron felt a deep sense of purpose. A purpose he now understood was uniquely his own. Clint patted him on the shoulder, his touch firm yet gentle. "Keep doing right by yourself, Barron. That's how you honor the ones who came before you." And with that, the two of them stood in quiet solidarity, the world stretching out before them. One a seasoned storyteller, the other a young man finding his voice. Together they embodied a timeless truth, that courage, resilience, and the power of mentorship could light the way through even the darkest of times. The stars above shone brightly, as if to bear witness to their journey. And for Clint Eastwood and Barron Trump, the story was far from over. It was only just beginning.